You've asked for it, and it's making a return. Complete guide to taking a touch in FIFA 23. This has never been more crucial than ever, and you're going to find out why throughout the tutorial, but let's jump in. First of all, what is a touch? People don't necessarily always know what I'm talking about or referring to when I say taking a touch. It's essentially the first time you receive the ball. The passer makes the pass into another attacker, and it's them receiving the ball. It's them taking a touch into a certain direction. First of all, what not to do when taking a touch. This is super crucial. It's the common mistakes that you guys should avoid when taking a touch in FIFA 23. It's never taking a touch towards the pressure. I tell you, this is probably the most important tip that you need to remember before delving into this tutorial. Never take a touch towards the pressure. If you take a touch towards the pressure, you will lose the ball. Simply because if I'm taking a touch towards the defender, the opponent is easily going to pick me apart, okay? The next mistake I would say to avoid is never take a touch forward unless there is space to exploit. This will go in line to the next point that I'm about to make, but what I want to say is there are times when people just want to bomb forward towards goal as soon as they can and score as quick as they can. It doesn't work that way. If you want to improve, you need to be mindful of where the space is. As I said, never take it towards the pressure, always take it to the space. And when you're attacking, if you take it forwards and there is a defender there, you'll have no hope in terms of getting past him. You always want to take a touch forwards when there is space, but if there is not, take a touch backwards. The final tip I want to give you guys in terms of actually taking a touch and the mistakes that you can make with doing this technique is essentially not sprinting, unless you want to burst into some available space that is open, okay? You should never hold sprint when you take the ball from the passer to the receiver, because as you take that touch, the touch will be too large, and essentially you will lose out the majority of the time, especially when you are near the pressure. So always let go of sprint unless you want to burst into some space. Moving into the basics of taking a touch. Now, it will fall in line with some of the mistakes, and I did mention it briefly before, but always take a touch to the space. Always take a touch to the space. This is super crucial. You never want to take it to the pressure. You always want to look around, see where the space is, and that is the direction that you want to take the touch. And this tip will fall in line with the majority of taking a touch tips that I'm about to give you throughout this complete taking a touch tutorial, okay? It's super crucial. Always keep your back to the opponent, and this will go in line with taking a touch to the space and not always taking a touch forward. Essentially, you want to always keep your back to the opponent. They can't get the ball off you. It goes in line with dribbling. I've always said when you're dribbling, dribble to the space, keep your back to the opponent. Same as taking a touch. If there is a defender approaching you from a single side, if there is a defender approaching you from a side, take a touch away from him and keep your back to him. He will not be able to get the ball off you. And again, this falls in line with what I just said. Always take a touch away from the defender. As he's approaching you, take it away from him into the space so that it allows you to keep your back to him as he approaches. How to draw defenders out with a touch. This is actually very useful in the attack, especially when you pass it into an attacker. And this is where this tip falls in line. When you pass into a winger or a striker, and if you take a touch backwards away from the defender, and if you actually dribble backwards, not towards the goal, but actually backwards away from your goal that you're trying to attack up, then what that will do is actually draw a defender out. He will be more inclined to approach you and follow the attacker on the ball. And I do this quite often. I will pass into the attacker, into the striker, so that I simply draw defenders out. Once you draw them out, there will then be holes and gaps for your other attackers to run through, hit through that space, and it will allow you to open up attacking opportunities. That's exactly why a very key attacking technique that I have taught you before, specifically in FIFA 22, is hitting the striker's feet. The whole point of us hitting the striker's feet is so we can open up space. And how do we open up space? From taking a touch away from the defender and drawing him out of his position. Taking a touch to stop and stand still. This is a very effective technique of especially opening up space and leaving defenders in the dust. They will literally run past you because they won't expect it. Okay, skill moves specifically help wield this, and there's 2 skill moves of note that I want to mention for this segment of stopping and standing still as a touch, and that is Number 1, the feint shot stop. All you need to do to perform it is a feint shot and let go of the left stick. As you receive the ball, do it as a first touch, and this will allow you to stop the ball on the spot instantaneously. It's very, very useful simply because the defender and your opponent will not expect it. It's a very, very good way of stopping the ball instantaneously. Number 2 is the feint rabona. Yet another skill move we can use to stop the ball first time as a touch, and you're able to essentially, again, leave the defender in the dust. It also allows you to face up to the defender, and as he approaches you second time round, you can hit a skill move, let's say a feint rabona, or let's say an elastico or a reverse elastico, grip turn, whatever it is. It's super useful to stop the ball as a touch. This brings me into the next segment, and I do want the segments to flow through the tutorial, okay, so they all link to each other. Skill moves as a first time skill move, and as obviously a first time touch. There's 4 skill moves that I've outlined, okay, that I want to specifically break down. And although every skill move you could use technically as a first time touch, these are the skill moves that I find are most effective. The ball roll, okay, when you are receiving the ball first time, you can hit the ball roll to take it away from the defender, and that's why it's super useful. The ball roll is a very good skill move to essentially take it away from a defender as he approaches you. And as a first time touch, we can do it even quicker. Again, also, if a through ball has been put through by the opponent and your defender is chasing that down, you can hit a ball roll first time as a first time touch away from the attacker that's approaching you to take it away from him and get away from him. Now, to perform the ball roll, it's just holding the right stick to the right or to the left of where the attacker is facing. So it's either 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and you hold it for around a second, and the player ball rolls it away, left or right, to the direction that you're pointing. The Elastico. Now this is more specifically something best for the attack, because you can hit the Elastico first time in FIFA 23 and essentially take it away from that defender and burst into that space that's available. Okay, there's some space available to the left of the player, or if he's a left-footed player this year, it'll go to the right, of course. Then you can use the Elastico to do so. I was going to have 2 segments to separate the two, but the reverse Elastico is the counterpart and partner in crime of this skill move. Again, it's similar. Reverse Elastico and the Elastico are the 2 skill moves that I recommend using as a first time touch, because it will allow you to take it into the space to the side of where the attacker is facing. Now, to perform the Elastico, first of all, you enter in with the right stick to the right of the player. Okay, so that is, of course, 3 o'clock. And then you rotate around clockwise to 6 o'clock, and the player will perform a flip-flap motion. The reverse is obviously in the name, it's the reverse. So you enter in at 9 o'clock to the left of the player, and you rotate around to the back of him anti-clockwise to 6. And he'll perform the reverse Elastico. Super effective in the attack, especially as a first time touch. Last but not least, we have the feint shot. Now, with feint shot, and especially the explosive feint shot this year added in with 4-star skillers, this is better than ever. And essentially, as you receive the ball as the attacker, you can take a feint shot into any direction you like, whether it's to the side, to the front, to the back, as a first time touch, and it allows you to burst into space from the get-go as a first time touch. And I really like this, especially the explosive variation with your 4-star skills and 5-star skills. Now, a feint shot's simple. It's cross or shoot with the pass button pressed subsequently. The boosted touch. Now, there are various techniques of doing this style of touch, and of course it does contradict what I did say in the things to avoid in terms of taking a touch, and that was holding sprint. But there are certain situations, like I said, where you can use a touch to burst into some space that's available, okay? The first one, of course, is the knock-on. Now, the knock-on's a very good technique of actually bursting into some space when it's available. And all you need to do is hold the right stick to the direction that you want to burst into. If the space is there, you may as well burst into it and get the speed boost right off the bat. With speed boosts and obviously the sprinting mechanics that have been added in by EA this year, it's actually very effective, okay? And of course, it's very good to use on the wing. You might be receiving the ball in as a winger and burst up the pitch, up the side, in behind, past the defender, and it's a very good technique of doing that. Now, there's another technique, and that is the explosive sprint. Again, another technique where you can use double tap technique of the sprint button to burst into some space, and that activates explosive sprint. Which one is better, knock on or explosive sprint? That's debatable, but what I'll say is they're both very effective for bursting into the space when it becomes available. And what I love about it this year is the sprinting mechanics. Because the sprinting mechanics are to our advantage this year, we can use these 2 techniques to our advantage. The third and final tip that I do want to give you is using this technique when you're in behind. as a first touch. When there's an over the top through ball, let's say, and you're in behind, you need to burst into some space without having the momentum slow you down when you're attempting to bring the ball down over the attacker. If you can just kick it out as a first touch in front of you, they can sprint and run onto it as the ball trajectory comes down to the ground, rather than trying to control the ball and then getting caught from behind with the defender. So essentially, it's a very good way of basically getting in behind and continuing on with your attack. Standing still. This is actually very, very effective, and as a first touch, it's super crucial, okay? When you receive the ball, drop everything. Just drop everything. Don't take a touch to any direction with the left stick. What this actually does is it allows you guys to reevaluate, take a second, just to see where your attackers are, to then think where we're going to go next. It also draws defenders out, because when you're standing still, okay, as a first time touch, the defender has to approach you, otherwise there's no point. So he has to come towards you. If you're drawing him in, okay, you're leaving then space in behind, you're leaving gaps, and essentially you're allowing your other attackers to run and burst into those gaps, which is super, super crucial. So letting go of the left stick, taking a touch as a standing still motion is very beneficial. Taking a touch inside the box. This is super crucial for you guys if you're wanting to get away from that defender, to basically turn the defender and get that shooting opportunity, get that shot off. Because as we know, blocks are still pretty broken in FIFA, and in general, we need to avoid them to get away from them and essentially get the shot off to get the angle. Now, taking a touch always involves you guys attempting to try and roll the defender. Usually he'll be on your back, okay? He'll be on your back and be quite tight to you, and you guys need to get away from him. It does take into account taking a touch to the space, okay, like I said, and essentially you need to keep your back to him and roll him away. So the good thing I like to do is, as you receive the ball in, let's say from an angle from the side, you can hold the left stick diagonally backwards to the goal and diagonally forwards to where the player is facing, okay, and it will allow you to roll the defender off, as he will take the touch in and have the body shape to essentially keep his back to the defender and get into the space that's available to get the shot off. This is super, super crucial, and again, you want to basically take a touch into the space, and this will allow you to get away from the defender as always. Another aspect of taking touch inside the bots, and I will have a complete segment on this in this tutorial later on, but it's taking a touch to determine the flow of the play in the bots. If there is an attacker that you want to actually pass into to get the extra pass off, to get into a better position for a shot, rather than shooting with the player that's receiving the ball and taking the touch, then you need to be thinking, okay, where do I actually need to take this direction of the touch to get that ball into that attacker? And this is determining the flow of the play. So the touch has to have purpose. You need to take a touch into the direction that will suit where you want to go next in the bots. As I said, there'll be a complete segment on that coming up soon, but that's very crucial. Air balls. Now, this probably could have gone in with what I'm about to say here, the mistakes that you guys should avoid in terms of taking a touch, alright? But what I will say is, when you're receiving the ball in the air, you need to let go of sprint. This will ensure that you don't take too of a larger touch once the ball is being controlled down and put down to the ground. If you're holding sprint, the touch that they take with their chest or their head will be too large, and you'll be more susceptible to having it intercepted. So, what I will say is, you can let go of sprint and essentially have a better touch, a better caressed ball down into the ground than you would if you held sprint or R2 and RT. The second aspect is letting go of the left stick. This is actually sometimes super crucial. The ball is being passed to you in the air, and if you are losing control of the ball and essentially you find yourself losing the ball when you switch the play, let's say, to the other side of the pitch, you need to let go of the left stick before you then attempt to dribble with the ball once he's controlled it down. Let go of the left stick to allow him to control it on his chest and put it down on the ground. This is very, very crucial, and it will allow you guys to control the ball much better. The dink touch, a new addition last year in 22, and it's still useful in 23. You just need to click down on the R3 button and point it to a direction that you want to take the touch. And what will happen is the player will dink it to that direction where you're pointing with the right stick. Now, why I say this is actually very, very useful is because if there is a defender approaching you, you need to flick it over his lunge, his tackle. This is very crucial, very useful for that. And if you press down the R3 button, flick it over his foot, you can then continue on with the attack. And it gives you a bit of a speed boost as well, because you sort of flick it in that direction and bang, you're off when you hit R2. Very, very useful in terms of dinking it over the defender as a first time touch. The first time feinted turn. This is actually new to FIFA and it's very, very quick. You can use it as a first touch this year in 23. Okay, and essentially what you can do is you can hold in R1 and L1 and then you want to point the left stick backwards to where the player is facing. He will feint and then turn and take the ball into the direction to where the ball was actually traveling initially, and it's a very, very effective first time touch. Could be in the box, essentially receiving the ball, and to get away from the defender and feint him away, you get into that shooting position, you can use the first time feinted turn. And essentially it's a very, very good way of taking a touch into that direction. Again, in the midfield or in the wing area, there is space going towards the actual direction you need to feint that defender. If there's space going towards the direction of the ball trajectory, it's a very, very useful way of taking a touch in FIFA 23. The disguise turn. Now this is actually the opposite to the feinted turn, the new addition to 23. The disguise turn does the opposite direction. So if you want to actually feint and then go the direction that you actually are receiving the ball from, and it will depend where the space is. As I said, take the ball into the space as the first touch. It will depend what technique you use. But the disguise turn allows you to feint, then go forwards. And the player feints it, takes it forwards as a first touch, and it usually gets rid of the defender, and that's why I like it. The opponent will expect you guys to go the other way when you go directly towards the direction where the ball had been received. And you can mix it up with the first time feinted turn and the disguise turn, essentially trick your opponent. Shielding when receiving an air ball. Now this is crucial. If you're, passing into a striker or an attacker, and there is a defender on you straight away, you may need to shield as a first touch, and it's actually very useful also when you're receiving an air ball. If there is an opponent who's on you and you're receiving an air ball, and you need to shield him away as a first touch before you carry on with the attack, and this may be necessary. Holding L2, the player will use their body weight and they'll shield the ball to keep it away from the opponent as a first touch. You're doing it, obviously, as I said, from the get-go. As soon as you receive the ball, you're shielding, staying strong on the ball, and this is very, very crucial for taking a first-time touch in FIFA 23. The bursted touch or the sprint. Now this could have gone into segment I had before on the large touch out in front of you into space, but what I want to say is this is very, very useful this year because of the mechanics that have changed in the game. If you just hold R2, not tap, like I said with the explosive sprint touch technique, but just hold. First time, if you hold the left stick towards the direction you want to burst into, where the space is, mind you, it has to have space, it's very, very effective. And I'll tell you why, because of the mechanics. EA have added in the mechanics this year where it's a lot better to sprint, and you can have a lot more control, and they seem to burst off the mark a lot quicker. So if we're the first time touch, we can use this to our advantage and essentially burst into that space that's available and get past the defender. Taking a touch to determine the direction or the flow of the play. As I said, a complete segment on this. It's very advanced, it's a pro technique, and if you're advanced in the game, I would expect you guys to know this sort of thing. Essentially, taking a touch needs to have purpose, and you need to be thinking of where you want to go next, and be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. If I want to take the ball into the middle, then I need to determine the direction of my touch to essentially allow me to make that passing. If I'm not thinking about where I'm taking the ball first time, then there's no point. And this is what pros are always thinking. They're always thinking, where are we going to take the touch next to get to the passing opportunity or the passing angle that I need to get the ball into another attacker that I want. There's a striker that's been marked in the box, but there's a way of taking a touch, let's say backwards, to then find that angle for that pass into him. Then that's determining the flow of the play. That's allowing us to find that pass into the middle to essentially make that attacking play. Yet if you weren't thinking about that, then you'd be taking a touch into a random direction. It wouldn't have any purpose. That's why I say, take a touch with purpose. It's a pro technique, it's quite advanced, but it's super crucial. If you think about it just a little bit, you'll take a touch a lot better in FIFA 23. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is a complete guide to taking a touch in FIFA 23. Took a while to make this video, so please smash that like button. If we could get 2,000 likes on this video, that would be much appreciated from you guys. Of course, I am coaching 101 on patreon.com. If you want coaching on how to get to Elite Division, I've taken people from Div 10 to Elite Division in months. It can be done. Check out the academy. The link will be down below. Of course, also follow me on Instagram. I'll be doing FIFA 23 giveaways throughout the year, and you guys can keep in touch with your boy, and also keep in touch with the No Money Spent Road to an Event series that we're running on this channel this year. I can't wait for the new competitive season as a pro. But as always, I hope you guys have a good day. I'm out. Sayonara. Au revoir. Adios. Salam. Ciao. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. And lastly, if you do want any pre-gaming fuel or supplement, then head over to atpscience.com, which is the first link in the description, and use the code AussieFIFA at checkout to get yourself a discount. Not only is it the cheapest way to get supplements, but it helps me out a ton, guys, so thank you.